Let's see, I think we have 11 members now. I think we need 6. Welcome, Mayor. Let's see, who else do we have? Welcome, Brian. Still not at quorum yet. Once we get to quorum, I will start soon, whether we're at quorum or not. If we don't have a quorum, we just can't take any action. I think we'll have a quorum pretty soon. I know Adrian's coming. Oh, now we've got, looks like we have, yeah, Adrian and Kathleen. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have quorum. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. And since we got a quorum, I will start. Welcome. I'm Barry Barfield. And oh, I don't know. And there's Jerry. Welcome, Jerry. I think we all know each other and our guest, the mayor, and we know Brian, and Nicolette is Jonathan Bingle's assistant. Tessa is staff member, Eric staff member. So let's see. First thing is approval of agenda.
Also move.
Any second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, or first, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye or wave your hand or something to show your affirmative. Any negatory? Any abstention? Okay, we've got an agenda. Public comment. You know, I don't see anyone on here at the moment from the public. No, we're all either staff members or board members. So I will assume there is no public comment. Next thing, approval of the minutes. I don't think we have the minutes. Do we, Kim?
I forgot again. I'm sorry. I'll send them tonight and then we'll have them for the next one.
All righty. Okay. Well, hey, we're just zipping right through here. So we will pass on approving the minutes and we'll get right into Board of Education, Mayor's Homeless Plan. Mayor Woodward, thank you for joining us and tell us about your homeless plan, please.
Well, first, Barry, can I ask if everyone received a handout of the homeless plan? And I hope everybody has one.
I did not. I've seen it, but I did not receive one.
Those were supposed to have been passed out for this meeting.
Well, they would have to have been emailed because we're not in person, but I didn't receive anything.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Do we have a, if Eric or Jen are on this, do we have a slideshow to share?
Jen is just finishing up with an, there's Eric, never mind.
Yeah, it looks like they're both on here.
Yeah, I'm looking for it, Mayor. You know, that's been kind of with Brian. So let me, I'll look for it here if you want to do the intro and try to host it. Sorry.
Would you like to talk to folks, Mayor, before we do that?
Absolutely. Let me just tell you how we came to form this plan. So the city's been working very hard on the next evolution of our homeless plan. During the pandemic, we were able to bring on a number of shelters to the regional shelter system, which was a plan that aligned also with the COC 5-year plan to end homelessness. So we brought on a new young adult shelter operated by Volunteers of America, 44 beds available for those who are 18 to 24-year-olds. Love that shelter because you're working upstream now, finally, at a focused demographic of the homeless population to prevent the next generation of homeless. Next to SCC, with a great partnership with the school and for technical training and continued education, which I think is really important. So that came on in 2021. We also brought on or transitioned the Way Out shelter, which was during COVID, an emergency drop-in night-by-night shelter We transitioned that at the end of 2021 into the Bridge Housing Model Shelter. Salvation Army runs that. It's called the Way Out Center. It's 60 beds, and their metrics have been absolutely incredible. I don't know if any of you have visited that on Mission, but that shelter just in the last 2 weeks has found 12 people jobs and gotten many of them into homes. So, I mean, their statistics are so encouraging. And then the city's own Cannon Street shelter, which was a temporary seasonal warming shelter, we transitioned into a year-round shelter that operates 24/7. So all of those three things we were able to do, as well as expand capacity within the shelter system during COVID. And so we knew that the work never is over. It just evolves and continues. So what do we do next? So the plan that I'm going to present to you is the work of a lot of different groups, providers, associations. Former Governor Christine Gregoire is doing some amazing work statewide with homelessness through Challenge Seattle. She conducted a statewide survey that indicates the sentiment of voters and residents, not just throughout the state, but they targeted 7 counties. They polled 7 counties. Spokane was one of them, to get a real read on how people are feeling about homelessness. So anyway, that's how we came to this. And this plan is a collaboration of all of that work. There's also a group called Hello for Good at the private sector. It's a group of business leaders and property owners that have gone very engaged on this issue of homelessness, which quite frankly, I am encouraged by, because I don't think the city can do this alone. I don't think with the county we can even do this alone. I think it's a public-private collaboration and partnership. We just don't have enough funding to do everything that we want to be able to do. And then we had former mayor of Albuquerque, New Mexico, RJ Berry, who came in and did some consulting work, as he does for cities across the country, came to Spokane, met with a lot of providers and stakeholders, and gave us an assessment of the lay of the land when it comes to homelessness. During his 8 years as mayor of Albuquerque, he was able to reduce homelessness by 40%. And so he is sharing his best practices. So this plan incorporates all of those bodies of work. And I think it's a good plan. We have been sharing it with as many groups as possible, including you, to get feedback. I did stand up a Mayor's Advisory Council on Homelessness and Downtown Environment at the end of last year. Adrian sits on that advisory board. And so we showed the draft plan to my MAC board first, but we're also going to show it we've showed it to electeds, all the providers last Friday, the CHHS group, we'll show it to the COC group next week, just to socialize it with as many people and get as much feedback as possible, knowing that not everybody gets everything, but everybody gets something. And so if we have buy-in from a broad sector of our community, we have better success of implementing this plan and getting people the help that they need. All right, so that's just the overview of it. And then I'll leave some time at the very end for some questions. So this is just going to be a high level. You will get a copy of this somehow. We'll figure that out. I apologize for that. I was under the impression you would have it, and would like to incorporate your feedback as well. Eric, you're on the call. How are we doing with getting a slideshow up?
All right, so
if not, I'm just going to keep going.
Well, yes. Yeah, so all I found was the earlier digital draft that was before a lot of the updates, and unfortunately I have a manual version, Mayor, but that doesn't really help us in this forum. So
all right, so that's okay. I'll just adjust it a little bit, and then you guys can ask questions, because if you can't see it, it's a little bit harder to follow. But anyway, so that statewide plan that was.
Mayor, you have a lot of experience communicating, so I think you'll be able to do it. So.
I will be able to do it, Barry, but of course with a slideshow, it makes it just a little bit easier for people when you have a visual, but that's all right. We'll make it work. The statewide survey that we did, that Challenge Seattle did last fall statewide, showed that I thought this was an interesting emotion. More than half of the people, when you bring up, how do you feel about homelessness in your community? It's not anger. It's not a frustration like we hear a lot, certainly in my office. It was one of sadness. that when people look at homelessness in their community, the emotion that they feel predominantly is sadness. Everyone believes it's a statewide issue. Of those polled statewide, 2/3 said the responsibility falls on government, but 92% said state government, because local governments are not equipped or funded enough to address this issue. In Spokane County, what I thought was interesting when they polled us, 86% of the people in Spokane County said it is the top challenge of our city. So I think that's just a really interesting look at where people stand on the issue statewide and in Spokane County. We started with an opportunity statement that says universally, we believe that sidewalks and underpasses and alleyways and outdoor spaces is not safe or healthy for people who do not have a home. And that we are all in the belief that making homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring is our ultimate goal. That is also the COC's statement, and although I understand that they're beginning now to look at adjusting that statement possibly. The guiding principles, as we did this work, was a four-pronged framework of principles, which said that we want partnerships and collaboration, because again, not one entity can do this alone, that we want to resist the urge to attack people personally based on their own belief. Not even our providers are in full agreement on how to address this issue. Many diverse opinions when it comes to homelessness. Let's be open to all perspectives. But for me, the third one was really important, and that was to listen to the community, to the experts, to the conveners, to the advocates, to the businesses, to the lived experience, and to the data. And I will always tell you, since I've been in office, I've learned a lot about homelessness because I've listened. I have changed my perspective on homelessness because I've listened. I've admitted that I was wrong when I said we don't need more low barrier shelters because I listened. So I believe that when you listen, you learn, and when you speak, you just repeat what you already know. So I've spent a lot of time listening and being flexible and adjusting how I believe we should address this, but also incorporating other people's perspectives and how we should address this. So it really is an 8-pillared plan, and every pillar, as when you get this plan sent to you, has action items under each pillar, and it indicates where we are along the process of those action items, whether they are the planning stages, in the progress of being implemented. It's hard for me to, I'm not going to go through all of them. It's just way too much, but I will tell you the overall strategy to this 8-pillar plan is to get people who are unhoused into emergency housing first. Therefore, we need more low barrier beds. Meet people with individualized services. I don't believe we're going to solve homelessness. We have to do a better job of addressing it, but I do believe there are as many solutions to homelessness as there are individuals experiencing homelessness. Everybody has their own journey. That's why we need individual services and plans. Coordinate our supportive services. I don't think we do a good enough job of coordinating all the resources that we have. Know by name and need. That's why we need more caseworkers. Know individuals by their name, their needs, and we need a better tracking system, I think, overall through the system to help us guide people as they exit out of homelessness. Deliver the transparency and accountability so we have buy-in, not just from the providers, from the shelter operators, but also from the individuals utilizing those services. And of course, create more housing inventory. I declared a housing emergency last summer with a lot of actionable items that the administration could do on the executive side, but also council could do on zoning. And we're looking at things also with the Plan Commission and comprehensive plan on what we can do to increase affordable housing and really housing of all income levels. So the next part of that is where do we go next? Identifying a shelter space. We have identified shelter space. This is something that we have been working on since last fall. We located a building in January of this year. It is taking us this long to get to the point where we can say we're within weeks of opening it. We put out an RFP 3 weeks ago. We did get several submissions. That's going through the review process, and it will go before the COC board for a vote. And so we hope to get that up and operating very, very quickly. This will be Spokane's largest low barrier shelter. And I know there are some people who don't think we should have large shelters with hundreds of people in them, but this is a space that's large enough that we can segregate women from men. We know that women oftentimes want to be in their own area. Couples can stay together. People can bring their pets. And we could have multiple providers, but that's all very, very flexible. Yes, Barry.
I think you're probably not prepared to answer this question, but can you say where that building is?
I can't tell you yet, Barry, and I'm really, really sorry.
I understand.
But I will tell you that it checks the boxes of it is not downtown. It is not in the middle of a neighborhood. It is not close to schools or daycares, and impacts businesses to the lowest that we could. And you know the NIMBYism in this community, no matter before we opened up this low barrier, we tried to open up a number of temporary 4 different times, and they were shot down every single time. So you know the challenge. I work on this every single day. 80% of my time is spent on this, and I'm telling you, where we're going to open the shelter, if we couldn't get it there, we will not be able to open a shelter anywhere in the city of Spokane. So you'll find out very, very soon. So it was identifying where we could open up that shelter, seek the proposals, which we've already done, a much larger space, which was the goal. The other thing of it, the shelter dashboard, which I know is very, very important to CHHS board, to Spokane Homeless Coalition, and to many of the providers. And we have now got that dashboard back into the hands of the city. It wasn't with the county for a little while. We've got it back at the city, and we're getting very, very close to making that a public tool that anybody has access to, really. So that's a huge goal of ours. And then we are going to launch a community-wide regional fundraising effort. There are cities like Colorado Springs and San Diego that have been very successful in getting the public to help fund homelessness. There are a lot of people who want to do something, but they don't necessarily know what to do. But if we can get the private sector, just the vast community, on board some type of fundraising effort to help fill the gaps of funding, that's the next step that we're going to do as well. So resources that informed the plan, we looked at Challenge Seattle, Governor Christine Gregoire's work, the Continuum of Care's 5-year plan, the plan that I launched last July of 2020, which brought on the young adult shelter, the Cannon Street 24/7, and the Way Out Center. A number of those plans were brought together. Our community partners, Berry Consulting, Downtown Spokane Partnership, Hello for Good, Hope Street Coalition, my advisory council, providers, regional governance group. I mean, just a number of groups informed this plan. We're also showing it to, socializing it to the NHHS team, the CED, Spokane Fire Department, the Police Department, all of you, the Continuum of Care Board, HUD, our federal delegation, our Spokane City Council, the County Commission, and then also our state delegation. So let me just go through real quickly the 8 pillars. Number 1, as I mentioned, get individuals emergency housed. Provide those on-demand services. Coordinate the resources. Again, know them by name. Maximize case management effectiveness. This new shelter will have enough admin office space on site that we can have providers come in and provide those services directly to the population where they are. Also deliver transparency to retain buy-in, create more housing inventory, and expect compassionate accountability. Compassionate accountability, I think, is really important. I think as a community, we really need to get to the point of, and I'm hearing this from providers, if we have resources and we have places for people to go, but for whatever reason, they're not willing or can't because of a substance abuse issue or a mental health issue, access resources. How do we as a community step in and compel them to get connected to the help that they need to exit homelessness? And I don't know if we can, I don't know if there's 100% agreement on that. Everybody has a different definition of compassion and accountability, but I think that needs to be part of the conversation as well, and that's a harder conversation to have. So again, we'll give you this plan. If anybody has any questions, I know this was kind of a high level introduction. We will, and I really am looking forward to seeing your feedback on it.
Thank you. Anybody questions? Either you can put in the chat or just ask them out loud.
Yeah, I've got a question. This is Jerry. Thank you so much for that presentation, Mayor. I really appreciate this information and just so excited to get my hands on that document, learn more, dig in deeper, and continue this conversation. But my question is, so I believe it's next week. There's a homelessness planning session that Empire Health Foundation is facilitating in partnership with business community and COC leadership. And I'm wondering how this plan that you've just shared with us either aligns with or will be informed by, or what's the interaction with this effort that's being led by Empire Health Foundation, business community, and COC leadership.
So I just met with Empire Health for the first time last week, was not aware at all of the body of work that they are doing with the stakeholders in the community, and told them that what I'd love to do is to see what they are doing so that we can try to incorporate that into this plan. I think we all need to be working together, and so I look forward to that. I don't know much about the event next week, but if there's other work that's going on alongside of us, would love to incorporate it into what we're doing here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Really? That's it?
I think Catherine has a question.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
And I agree, it was a great presentation. I really appreciate it, and the visuals would definitely be
Would have
useful.
helped. Yes.
One of the things that I'm seeing everywhere is there is such an incredible concern about homelessness and housing. And so we're starting to see pop-ups of things in different parts of both the city and the county and in the nonprofit environment where people are trying to grapple with it. I'm wondering if you've thought about, or if there are plans for creating some way of pulling these all together, because the cross-fertilization, I think, would be really rich. And it seems like it almost feels competitive in a way. And when people finalize things and it's hard to change your mind, it's much better to work together. Have you thought about that?
Well, and that's why we, for this plan, of trying to incorporate as much as what we are aware of going on in the community when it comes to homelessness. If there's some housing projects and issues that, are you specifically talking about housing, or are you talking about homelessness and housing?
Well, both of them. Yeah, I think there's just such a real drive and interest to dealing with both of those problems. And they're, certainly related, but they're also different. And I'm just seeing pop-up groups all over. The planning department wants to do something about housing. So we've already got several groups doing housing. It would be nice if there was a collaboration, but I don't know that people have a central point to find out about that or to get information from her. So I'm just wondering.
Well, there's different jurisdictions doing different things too, and different jurisdictions have different planning and zoning and all that. At the city side, we did spend all of 2021 on a housing action plan, which was finalized and socialized with the community. And in 2022, the beginning of it, we're in the process of implementing some of those recommended items through council, because some of it can be done, has to be done at the legislative side with our city council. And those are things that are very unique to the city because of our own zoning issues. So some of those things I think have to be done separately within jurisdictions because of what other councils want to be doing. But I think that there should be a better effort to coordinate all of that work together. That's what we've tried to do with this homeless plan. So if like Jerry mentioned, Empire Health, I mean, I would love to incorporate what they're doing. But sometimes it's hard because there are so many one-offs. It's hard to get the lay of the land and know what everybody's doing.
Thank you.
That is a challenge for sure.
Bob, what's up?
Yeah, the one thing I thought I heard and what I really liked was the idea that bringing services to the shelter, whatever that new one is, because all the other times when everyone talked about bringing the homeless shelters out of this core was that we were taking away services. And so to me, I think that's a great move towards that.
Yeah, thank you. That's definitely the best practice now, is to have those in one location, wrap around at each individual shelter. And that concentration of services that we've seen downtown and the impacts that has on businesses and property owners, when everybody has to go to one place, it's difficult. It can be a real challenge.
Jerry put in the chat, what providers will be operating the services at the shelter?
I think Jen is answering that in the chat.
Oh, okay. My guess is you'll try to get as many as possible, and it's not open yet, so we're not there yet. It's my guess, but I'll see.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Sorry, I raised my hand, but I don't know if Barry was able to see it, so I'll just jump in. Thank you, Mayor, for presenting this. First up, point of clarification: the work that EHF is doing is it tied into the Continuum of Care's review of the plan to end homelessness. So they're providing the structure and the consulting, but it's that same process that's going on. And my understanding is that the goal is first to start with primarily the service providers and the boards to get sort of a gaps assessment. And then the next step will be broadening it to bring in electeds and bring in, so I think it is meant to work in concert.
Right.
And it's not meant to be yet another approach to this.
Doing something else, sure.
Yeah. And Hello for Good is involved with it as well. And so there's it's overlap and meant to complement and maybe fill out some of these areas where there's still some curiosity about understanding where the gaps are and those sorts of things. And then I'm just curious. So I think the piece that I hadn't heard before, which is great, the idea that some service providers would go to the shelter. Is the shelter going to still be an overnight shelter, or is it going to be a 24/7 shelter?
24/7.
Okay.
And overnight, yes.
And then is there some, as we're working through this process, will that complement the Spokane Resource Center? Because I know that some of the service providers are at the Resource Center as well as doing some of the services that are around homelessness. And I guess my concern is, we don't want to leave that building partially empty with the service providers being at the shelter. So what we might be thinking about doing to help the service providers, I guess, be stretched in a couple of different locations, which I think is important for them to go to where folks are for sure. But just an interesting.
And maybe Eric can answer that.
Yeah, and it's a good question. It's something we're still working through. And as Jen mentioned, a lot of this will depend on the provider selection and how it gets kind of set up in full. But the basic intention is that since we know that just the appointment based, them going to a service provider or 4 different service providers to get help is not necessarily a sustainable model. That this becomes kind of a bridge activity at its kind of core in terms of, okay, what can we do there and what can we do in a kind of one-stop shop, and then how do we potentially either minimize or then help, I think, bridge to, whether it be the resource center or any other, like a behavioral health or an outpatient program or whatever else it is. And then how do we maybe stay involved in the case management piece? And I say we, it's really going to be kind of provider and the existing case management framework driven. But really what we're trying to do is promote positive progression throughout, through the system, and not just it become, basically, a warehousing of folks. So that's the intention, and ultimately based on the kind of the service provider and the partnerships that they have built in already, then we'll be kind of finalizing what that looks like and kind of what happens there versus what we're going to connect people to.
And I think one of the gaps definitely in our system is the caseworker or the outreach, because we have the Cannon Street, which is great. It's 24/7. It's overnight, but nobody is moving out of there. It's full with the same people every single night. That's not a solution. So we need outreach to come to Cannon and assess people and see where they can get connected to services and maybe move through the system of from the lower barrier to the higher barrier to the way out center where Salvation Armies operate. I mean, that kind of thing needs to happen in a much better way.
Well, and I think the other challenge with that is that there's ceilings all the way along there. So you know, the folks that are in 50 to 80% AMI housing who are able to afford more technically, there's nowhere for real for them to move into, right? So, I mean, yeah. I think that this is sort of that question of how do we think of this overall in terms with some of the other work around affordable housing, with this recognition of this urgency and urgent response that's often needed to help build confidence with people experiencing homelessness that they have a way out. How do we balance that with the reality of how long it takes to change codes and build actual places for folks to live? So it's a really interesting challenge.
It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me that the Way Out Center does as well as it does with Salvation Army, because they're moving people through that facility. They just transitioned at the end of last year so incredibly quickly. But I said, how are you finding housing for these individuals? And they said, it's our personal relationships with property owners. And that's what some of the providers have been able to develop over the years to provide people housing as they're exiting homelessness. But you can't count on that because there's not enough of it.
Yeah.
So
and excuse me. And that's such a great point. Because that speaks to the other sort of difficulty around just the fee to apply for housing in various places when you have to apply to a bunch of different places and things like that, and where those relationships might make it possible where it wasn't before. So thinking about how we can do that as well.
And just all those other barriers, there's no reason, Jen had mentioned this too, that at this facility, we can't have someone come in and provide people IDs. I mean, just those kinds of things, just on site, which would be so convenient and so helpful to people. Anybody else?
Yeah, comments, questions? Mayor, thank you very much. And we look forward to Eric getting us either an email or a hard copy of those things. So sorry, I guess it all just slipped through all our fingers about getting that out. So sorry.
No worries, it's on our end too. So hey, thank you so much. Appreciate the time that you've given me today.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for all your work. Let's see here. Next thing, we move on to the discussion category. And I'd like to, because Bob has to leave about 4:45, and there's only one action item on here, the VOA Youth Shelter CDBG funding. Can I move that one up to the first in the discussion so that if we get to an action point, Bob can work on that? And is there anyone prepared to present upon it?
So first, Barry, I move that we alter the agenda to change the order from the VOA shelter being the second discussion item to the first.
Oh, is that really, we have to amend the agenda for that? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adrian. So we've got a motion. Any second? Catherine seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstention? Passes. Okay. I'm going to throw this to Jen if I can. I'm hoping you can give us something on that.
Thanks, Barry. George is actually on the call as well, and he did run the meeting. So, George, if you're comfortable just giving an overview, I would appreciate that.
Good. I didn't see George on here. Good.
Yeah, and Adrian, do you want to speak on behalf of the committee, and then I'll fill in wherever I can?
Yeah, I think I'll get started, and then I think that we have some additional questions as we've come to learn more. So if you all recall, the mayor just spoke about the youth homeless shelter. This is about funding for the rest of the renovations for that shelter. And if you all recall, earlier this fall, we were requested, the board was requested to contribute $750,000 of CDBG funds for those renovations for that shelter. The county also contributed to I think $500,000 to $750,000 to actually purchase the building. As Mayor Woodward said, it's a building that's really nicely located next to the community college. And so in the fall, it came to us last minute for us to move those funds. And I think because primarily those are not normally how we would fund that, but it came through us to use those funds. And to have the 44 beds, and it was I think it's meant to be a 24/7 shelter when all the things are done that need to be done. And so it did not come through affordable housing initially. It came straight to the board, and at that time in the fall, the board approved it, the $750,000. Well, since then. Multiple things have happened. Certainly, building construction costs have changed as part of it. Also, with the funding we contributed, being from CDBG and some other requirements, the kinds of remodeling, the costs of remodeling, for example, how much the construction workers are, the pay scale for the construction workers, things like that, all once added into consideration, basically increased their need from us by nearly 80%. So they came back asking for an additional, I believe it was an additional 600,000 with sort of an asterisk that's at least what they would need. They might need a little bit more than that. And the committee, well, first of all, just before I get to what the committee asked, George, is that accurate, the background?
Yes. Okay.
Just want to make sure before I move on. So the committee met and had a quick meeting Monday, I think, yesterday or Monday. And I really wanted the committee to look at it because, when it was brought to us that it was going to be almost double the original estimation, it concerned me that our experts in the Affordable Housing Committee didn't get a chance to look at it and vet it initially because they're really good at asking these kinds of questions. So we wanted to make sure we got it in front of the Affordable Housing Committee. And unsurprisingly, there were a lot of questions that they came up with. There were, first of all, concerns about how much additional funding was requested, how far off the original estimation was, and then they were curious about, some questions about what the current rate of utilization was for this shelter. Would this increase the beds? So we had some, because there is some operations going on there currently. So what are those, what if it didn't get funded, what would that mean? And then there were also some general concerns about the reality that under this last couple of years of transition, that the Affordable Housing Committee has not gone out with an RFP for a couple of years for home funds or for CDBG. So are we in a position where there might be other organizations looking to apply for funds? Might it be better to rebid the projects as some construction costs have changed? Why is the cost per square foot so high? So essentially, the Affordable Housing Committee had a number of concerns that weren't able to be answered in that meeting. And again, because it was fairly rapid last minute meeting, this is everybody appreciates greatly George facilitating this meeting and recognizing that he was pulling this together with the information that he had at the time, but there were still some questions. And so the Affordable Housing Committee decided at this point to deny the additional funding request until the additional information was provided. And that motion was approved. So then we had some follow-up emails as well, just some sort of concerns about why this price difference was so much. So at this point, that's the recommendation. Now, just a couple of procedural things I think it's important to keep in mind. Procedurally, any of our committees are making recommendations to the board. The board can accept that recommendation. The board can make a different recommendation with the funding going forward. The board can ask for it to go back to the committee for further consideration, right? So keeping in mind that we are in an advice, both the committee is advising, giving advice to the board, and the board is advising the city about the funding, and you know, so that's the strength of our recommendations. The Affordable Housing Committee does a really good job at asking really important questions and difficult questions. And in this particular case, I think that it was primarily that there just wasn't enough information, was where the area of concern was, and there was confusion about why it was coming. This big of an increase was coming to us in this way. So there was some confusion around that. So at that point, so it wasn't not support. It was not that they were not interested in supporting this very important shelter or recognizing the importance of this youth shelter, or that was not where the area of concern was. It was the way that this was packaged and not understanding how the money got to be so much greater than it was initially, especially because they didn't get to do that vetting when it first came through in the fall. So they had no history to base it on. Anything that I missed, George?
No, I think you did a really good job, Adrienne, kind of summarizing that. I would just say Barry was also on the call. So Barry, if you had anything to add to what Adrienne has already said.
Nope, I think she did a great job.
I would just add, I would say that the committee is, would be eager to have more information and be able to revisit. There were certainly some broader concerns, and I think one of the things that we're contending with, a thing that we're contending with that I didn't mention, is that the project was bid. There were multiple bids, but the bid I think is going to expire fairly soon. Those prices aren't going to be held. So we don't know what would happen if the funding didn't happen right now, and it had to go through another bidding process. Would that increase the prices or lower the prices? But that was part of why it was pushed through quickly, was recognizing that the contractors weren't going to hold that. They weren't going to hold that indefinitely.
Catherine, you had your hand up?
Oh, so I'm wondering if there were possible solutions or alternatives that were brought up at the meeting. I know we're looking at rebuilding or adding on to a building. Would maybe a remodel be a more cost-effective approach? Is that possible? Is there part of the building that's not being used that could be remodeled instead of rebuilding a whole new section to it? I mean, that would be one way to mitigate some of the cost.
So very similar to that, there was some problem solving suggested and some looking at the plans and making some suggestions. And I don't know, George or Jen, if you have any additional information about why the costs were so different, because I think that was an area of a great deal of confusion, is why it was going to be such a different cost, and we weren't able to ascertain that at the meeting. So if you have any information to fill in with that, I think that would be super helpful.
Adrian, this is Jen. I know that one piece, and this is my understanding, I think we would want to verify this in writing, but my understanding is that when they requested the initial money, they didn't take into consideration that CDBG requires Davis-Bacon wages, which are higher than regular wages. So that was part of that cost. And then just ongoing increases in construction and materials is my understanding. But we may want to follow up and make sure that I am repeating that accurately.
And again, to put in just a quick plug for the Affordable Housing Committee, this is why it's so important these sorts of things go through that committee, because I would be willing to bet, knowing the members on that committee, that they would have raised a question mark about that at that initial bidding request, knowing what experts they are in these funding sources. So I think that was something that was not fully understood even by the committee, that it wasn't just an oversight. They hadn't. I think that these are funds that they have not used in this way before, and so it wasn't something that entered the calculation. Because they were just thinking of funding in a more generic sense coming towards them. And I think that was something that the committee wasn't privy to, so they were confused by why they underestimated so much.
Catherine?
I have another question, and that has to do with the longevity of this program. Are we sure that it's going to be there forever since we're putting all this money into it? Is it limited? And what is their plan if it's limited to take it on in the future? Are we just putting millions of dollars and praying, or is there a plan going forward?
So this was part of a, and again, everyone please correct me if I get the details wrong. This was, so as the mayor mentioned, this was something that started earlier 2021. And this was a part of a $2.7 million grant from the Department of Commerce. For VOA to be service providers for this youth shelter, and then they worked through the housing authority because their expertise isn't in building, so the work that was done to both procure the building and bid out the remodels and things like that they had to contract out because that's not where they do the work. At this point, the 2.7 million will carry their operations, the operation side through. That's all it was for. It could not be used for construction. It could only be used for operations. We'll carry it through June 2023. I can't speak on behalf of VOA of what happens next. That's a long time for the next grants and things like that to come through. But we at least know that the operations would carry through June of 2023.
But we don't know about anything in the future.
Is there anything we know about the future? I don't, yeah. I have the same concern, Catherine, that if we're putting a lot of money into this thing, are we investing for the long term, or is it, in a year or two or three, just going to close up and boy, where did that money go? Yeah, I have the same questions. I don't know if we have an answer anytime we fund things like that.
Well, the VOA should have a funding plan, I would think. If they want to be continued, then they should be able to say, we're going here or going there, or we have this intent. At least that would make us feel there's a momentum instead of, well, it's going to die in June unless there's a miracle.
Gordon, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just, so, this is all really interesting the way this is coming about, but I mean, like not seeing a plan right from the very beginning or even now, I don't see, like how much money was allocated for staffing and case management services. And to me, that's what it's just like what the mayor was talking about for this other project, you know. I mean, that's what's going to determine the success and the longevity of this program to me, you know, is seeing those things happen. And so how much money was allocated for that other than just this construction costs, you know?
Well, that's where the $2.7 million grant came in. So yeah, so it was that grant plus some other funding, and this was an interesting. I mean, the struggle with this is this was a you know, a great partnership of a service provider getting the grant from Commerce, of the county and the city coming together to do this building in a location that, though in the city is accessible to, you know, is in a different location. So and an express priority that we've been talking about and with the COC around youth homelessness in particular, and the recognition of intervening earlier, having better results. Gordon, to your point, and Catherine, to your point, I mean, I think one of the challenges might be, and this is speculation, and so I'm not speaking on anyone's behalf, but is that the order that these came in wasn't the normal order that these would come in when you get a bunch of money and then you say, here's what our plan is going forward, right? So there's a sense in which funds were committed and things of that nature in a way that's a little out of the process that we normally do things, which has made this a bit more difficult. I would love for the, oh, go ahead, Barry. Sorry.
I was just, I guess, reaffirm that. It's like my quick sense of how this happened is there's been a felt and understood need for a young adult shelter for a long time. And it's been desired for a long time. And have it by the community college. Wow, that would be great. And, but gosh darn, it just never happened. And then the Department of Commerce is willing to give this $2.7 million. Whoa, let's take that. And so I think a year ago, there was just a lot of like, okay, let's grab this thing and go with it and make it happen. And I think what we're just experiencing right now is just one of the bumps along that process of trying to get all the pieces together to make it happen. But that's part of our decision, or our process is to recommend whether do we just adapt to that bump, or do we throw on the brakes and say, nope. So anyway, that's sort of my take.
And I would say, and maybe somebody can correct this, but if I recall correctly, and George or Jen, maybe you can help, that there was an RFP sent out by the county for their part of the funds that went towards this. And so the city didn't run its own RFP because the county had, and we went along with the county. So again, another piece of, so this is also just sort of a regional approach that maybe we didn't get all the information to the different folks that needed to hear about it. So there was an RFP that granted it, that granted this process. It just didn't come through the city, and then we didn't get to see a version of it when we contributed our funding.
I guess my question is, what do we need to do to save this project if we want to save it? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I would personally like to see that there's a funding plan going forward. And I'd like to see if there is another workaround besides actually building a new part of the building. Is there remodels that could make better use of the building that's already there and would be cheaper? I mean, how long would it take to get those answers? Does anybody know?
Yeah,
this is Kathleen.
Go ahead.
George and Jen, would you have any idea?
I'm hearing various voices. Kathleen, Jerry, and was George in there?
Well, and Torelli, I think. I'm not getting her name right, but our new member.
Let's go with Kathleen.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to mention that the county already had an RFP open and the city asked if they could use it because they expressed at the time, the leadership at the time expressed they didn't have the time or resources to do it, so they wanted to utilize RFP. So that's why they did. So this wasn't something that the county pushed onto the city. It was a joint decision of all parties. And I think what I would be interested in hearing, so I appreciate Adrian's update of the conversations and questions that occurred, is what is the impact if these final renovations don't occur? Are members not getting all services? Are members not going to be able to get external providers to come in and do those services? So I think that is what's key as to how successful this would be, in the fact that they wanted to put it, the decision was to put it by the community college. Are those types of services compromised, that sort of thing, so that it would affect the outcomes of it? I think that's a very important question. I know that they are running it. I know that they have requested and received funding from the county for operational and some from the city. I know that they have at least a 2-year plan of budget and shortfall for the shelter and other shelters. And so I do know that they are looking at operational costs. I'm not privy to their capital request or cost. That they have not made a capital request to us. And so I don't have that background information, but I do know that they are looking at costs and are trying to budget for it. And I don't know for sure on this, maybe Adrian or others know, if they took out a DOC grant for this, typically, and my experience is on the behavioral health side, so I don't know about a shelter facility, but usually it means you're taking a 10-year commitment. So I don't know if that's involved in this, so that would be a question too. No? Okay.
No, it's just a 2.7 million period, and when it's used up, it's done.
But in receiving that, they don't have to make a commitment to keep the shelter open for 10 years? Because they do with the,
I don't know.
Okay, the DOC requires that on the behavioral health. If you open a behavioral health facility, you do have to keep it open for 10 years. So that would be a question I would ask as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
I see Jerry and then Gordon, and I have a question for George. Are the bids going to expire soon? Like, do we have an urgency with a date? Jerry?
Okay, yes, I'll just add, there's so many questions flying around and they're all good questions. So I'm like getting lost in this conversation, but just the things I'd add or echo is yes to Catherine's comment or question around what is the decision that we need. Like, I need to know what's the decision that we need to make now if we want to move forward with this. That's kind of just that clarity piece that I need. But overall, I hear the concerns that you're all raising around the operations of this. And, we're in that same place with VOA and Hope House right now. It seems like they're coming up on a deadline in July. However, I'm in favor of this because if the facility doesn't exist, the program doesn't exist. So, that feels like the urgency to me. We need to get this facility in place or else it's just not going to happen at all. I feel like our community will come together and figure out the operating, hopefully.
Gordon?
Yeah, so you forwarded that email about the from Fawn Shot, Barry. Yeah, so that's where it talks about they're in risk of losing the state investment. So how close is that to a reality? They're overdue on their commitment by 8 months. So that's what it says. So that sounds like there's a pretty good sense of urgency. Did everybody see that email?
I didn't know what that meant. I saw it, but I didn't know what that meant.
I mean, at face value, it says they're at risk of losing the state investment. So that's pretty huge.
Now, that's the 2.7 million funding, which they've already drawn down some of that, and they are getting it right now. But I don't know about it ending.
So I would say there is a sense of urgency on our part to find out and do as much research as quick as possible.
George, do you know when the bids would expire that they currently have? We have.
I don't have an exact date when they expire. VOA did hire Spokane Housing Authority to conduct the procurement process on their behalf. And I haven't been given, I have asked for dates when they expire, and I haven't received. However, they have indicated a particular urgency, which is not uncommon. Generally, even when there's work to be had, contractors will usually give 30, 45 days, and they're well past that at this point.
Yeah. Okay, I got a question. Again, I don't know how all this thing works, but in her email, Fawn said she'd be willing to meet and talk with anyone about it. Can we, and do we want to schedule a meeting to have Fawn Schott talk to us about all this stuff? I see heads nodding yes. I know I would love to have her and answer those questions. Adrienne, is that the kind of thing the board does?
Well, not typically, not in that sense. I mean, especially, as we're working through the department to get those questions answered, that certainly would be the case for the questions to be asked to maybe to the staff to have some of those answers. The other challenge is getting a public meeting ready rapidly, because if she were to come talk to all of us, it would have to be a public meeting. So it would have to be a special meeting, and it would require all of that work in creating a special meeting, which is, I mean, I think it's not to say that we've not had, we've typically in the committee levels talked with providers when we've had some questions or things like that, but usually that's been, usually that's been after a decision has been made and maybe funding hasn't gone forward to share with them feedback about why that happened. I mean, I think we're in sort of an unusual situation. I think, I think recognizing again this sense of urgency. There's a few different things that we could do. In the past. So first of all, there's the recommendation of the Affordable Housing Committee. So we could just say until the Affordable Housing Committee gets more information, we're not going to go forward. We could have a motion to try to get X number of questions answered and reconvene Affordable Housing Committee immediately, or as soon as possible, or it's a committee, so the committee can do, doesn't have to be in person because it's not public meetings. Have them provide feedback, and then maybe, as we've already given permission to the executive committee to move some things forward, we could, if the Affordable Housing Committee changes their view based on the information, the executive committee could move the funding forward and then bring it back to the full board. We could move funding forward under the condition of certain questions being answered in a particular way. We've done where we say we'll grant funding up to this amount of money, as long as there's a clear plan for the operations to last for 2 years, or the operations to last for a year, right? You can do conditional funding as well. And that said, the next step could take those recommendations or not take those recommendations from us, right? So just sort of recognizing it could also be our advice. We just don't have enough information to fund at this point in time, and can't recommend it, although we support the work that's being done and hope that it does get funded, right? I mean, so there are some different kinds of motions that we can have as a board in our advisory capacity.
Anybody want to say support one or some of those options?
I would support taking the recommendation of the Affordable Housing Committee, because I think we need to really reflect back to that. That's our way of making sure things work, and ask them to get additional information, and then if they change their mind, to resubmit it. And we have a timeline, so I would encourage them to do that as quick as possible and to get that information, get their answers done, and decide what they want to do and make another recommendation. So can I recommend that?
Well, let's see if there's other people who have suggestions. That's on the table right now, Catherine. Jerry, it looked like you might have a suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd echo what Catherine is saying, and just with the caveat of meeting the urgency that is required. So like Gordon pointed out, there's like the risk of losing the state funding. So I don't know what the timeline is, how soon this has to happen, but if what Catherine recommended could happen as soon as it needs to happen, then yes, I'm with Catherine on that.
Gordon?
And then, so I was on the board too, and I listened in on the affordable housing and just listening to the experts like Andy and Phil and everybody on there that is so knowledgeable, you know, more so than me, but they have already uncovered more information and it's already just since Monday. And so I'm pretty sure they're have a better insight than we had Monday. Monday we were just kind of blind, and then now things are coming out to light, more things, and it's going to be interesting to see what they say and how. You know, it's just I think that there needs to be another meeting pretty soon with affordable housing. And I'm sure that's what's going to happen, but I want to support it, of course. And
yeah, y'all do.
Okay. So far, I'm hearing a kind of a tidal wave going towards Affordable Housing Committee. Listen to do some work, get some more information. Gordon, Adrian, and I were all there, so we've got at least the first meeting under our belts. Anybody else have a comment or suggestion? All right, chair of the committee, Adrian. I'm not sure what's next step. Do you go with it? Does George? Does who? How do we?
So Catherine should officially make a motion to, since we do have an action item on there, she officially makes the motion for this to be sent back with a sense of urgency to the Affordable Housing Committee to and department staff to get some answers with the hopes of learning more and being able to move this forward, but at this point supporting the Affordable Housing Committee's recommendation not to fund at this point. That was a lot. Do you remember all those words, Catherine? Sorry.
I make a motion that for the words Adrian said that she said Catherine said. I make a motion for that.
It's being recorded, so somebody will have that.
Okay, can we get that one more time? Because I'm going to need that for minutes, man.
Yeah, so let me see if I can frame it. So I move that we return the recommendation back to the Affordable Housing Committee and encourage them to get the information they need to be able to resubmit it to us and to the executive team if it's really time limited, but to move efficiently so that we can meet the deadlines that they have.
Second. You got it, Kim?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any discussion?
One quick discussion point. Adrian, does this sound reasonable? Does this sound like something Affordable Housing Committee can pull off?
Yeah, as Gordon said, they're already digging into what documents they have to learn more and coming up with additional questions. I think the bigger question is this something that that Jen has the department staff resources to help us get the information quickly. Affordable Housing came together pretty much in a day and met and had this discussion. So I have confidence that they'll continue and have an interest in wanting this to succeed, right? That's certainly the interest in this.
Yeah, I think we all want it to see it succeed, but we don't want to throw good money after bad.
Yeah. And we need to get those questions answered. Yep. Any other comment before voting on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye or wave your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. In the chat, I see Jonathan has to go to a meeting. Do we want to hear his council update before he goes? I see Adrian nodding yes. Okay, so I make a motion that we change the agenda so that Councilman Bingo, if he's still here, can give us his update. Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No abstention. Jonathan, Councilman Bingle, can you give us?
Hey, all. Yeah, I apologize. I'm heading to that same meeting, Eric Finch's, to meet with the neighborhood council and show them what's going on. So thank you for allowing me to do this. Here's a quick update. So of ARPA dollars, we have increased, or first off, we restarted our in-person meetings. And so if there's ever any issue that you want to show up, remember there's open forum, even if it's not on the agenda, come on in, tell city council what you're thinking, the issues that matter to you. We would love to hear from you. So those are Mondays at 6 p.m. Come on in to sign up for open forum. You get there at 5 o'clock. You can sign up there. My legislative aide, Nicolette, is always there to help people, and she has done it many times. And so if you have any issues whatsoever, she can help you through all that. We want to make sure that you are heard in what you're wanting to say. And there's still the hybrid option, so you can still do WebEx if you'd like to be heard that way. Some CHHS relevant appropriations from the ARPA plan is we've increased the appropriation of $1.2 million for the purpose of funding the mobile medical clinics in the region. And myself, Chief Shaper, and Nicolette, we are going to be on that body, making sure that that's happening and happening well. Again, we increased appropriation $1.5 million for the reimbursement of permit fees for attainable housing. We increased the appropriation $3.5 million for the support of homelessness, service capital, and operational costs. We increased appropriation $3 million provided for culturally appropriate behavioral health services and interventions for at-risk and low-income youth. And then we also increased appropriations for $2 million for projects of citywide importance. We have received a planning grant of $134,000, $135,000 for the Department of from HUD to fund planning for the Youth Services Demonstration Program. And that will be used to develop a coordinated community plan with services provided by 2 sub-recipients, Better Health Together and Volunteers of America. And then HUD has announced $4.3 million in Continuum of Care competition awards for Spokane area homeless housing and service programs. And those grants will provide funding to help individuals and families experiencing homelessness move into permanent housing with access to supportive services with the goal of long-term stability. It also includes funds for domestic violence support projects. We're also trying to, in that funding, add permanent housing and permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, transitional housing, all that kind of stuff. Breakdown of the awards: Volunteers of America got $1.5 million, basically the same number for Catholic Charities. YWCA got close to $700,000. The City of Spokane got $400 and change, and then SNAP got $265,000. And that's kind of our City Council update. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
The question I would ask is whether the behavioral health money is going to go to the new behavioral health next to NECA. Is that part of that, or is it something separate?
That is something separate. I believe, Nicolette, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that's separate. I believe we did a separate ARPA award to fund in the Hilliard area.
Yeah, that's separate.
Okay. Yep.
Hilliard Bemis.
Yes, Hilliard Bemis. Yep.
Yeah. Jerry?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Jonathan, for this update. And sounds like this is being allocated really well. Where is there a place that we can find a summary of cities' ARPA allocations? That's my first question. My second question is, could you talk to a little bit the engagement strategy with community to make these decisions?
Okay, so sorry, I'm writing these down so I don't forget either.
I can help answer that too if you need.
On the summary one?
Yeah, so the summary so far that we have available publicly is just in the city council meeting agendas themselves, but I could help put together a comprehensive summary of all of the ARPA funds and their allocations, because I think that'd be really beneficial for a lot of people involved. And then in terms of the outreach component, There have been multiple ARPA open houses at various schools, and that was actually at the end of last year. And then we did allocate funds to hire somebody that would specifically be for ARPA outreach toward community members. So just that little tidbit.
Thank you, Nicolette.
Yeah, that was basically exactly what I was going to say. So I have nothing else to add to that. But yeah, there is, we are obviously trying to have as much community engagement as possible to make sure that those dollars go to what the community would like to see them for. So, yep. And then as far as the community engagement goes for, you know, a potential shelter site, I know that the administration has put together a pretty thorough plan to go through and meet with all the different area businesses, communities, stakeholders, all that. So.
Yeah, they did do a community survey that was open to lots of people. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Several times, I think, actually.
Yeah, they've been working really hard. I think the work they've been doing is really good so far. I think we're all gonna be pretty excited about some announcements coming here shortly. So.
Anything else for Councilman Bingle? Thank you for hanging around.
Yes, thank you all so much. Keep up the good work.
We'll do our best. Thanks. Okay, unless somebody has something else, I'll go back to our agenda. Next thing on here is under discussion, number 1, ERA2 funds from Commerce. Update? Anyone prepared to do that?
Hey Barry, this is Jen. I can go ahead and give an update. I did follow up with Mary Baldwin, our commerce rep, and she is expecting something to be out this week, some sort of notice. So as soon as I have that, I'll definitely send out some information on that.
Great. Any questions, follow up with Jen on that one? If not, I'll go on to number 3, Continuum of Care Work Group.
Sorry, Barry. Oh. Just the one thing I'll just say quickly, and Jen knows this, but RFP committee will be ready to get together when you have notice of what that award is or what those funds are, and we can come together for those allocations.
Thank you, and we'll definitely be utilizing your expertise through that.
Great.
Okay. Adrian, do you want to say anything about the Continuum of Care Work Group report?
Yeah, briefly, I mentioned this when Mary Woodward was talking about the plan. EHF is working to help facilitate the goal is a pretty intense 6-week to 2 months process with service providers and boards and folks that utilize the system. To identify some gaps informing the continuum of care, a regional approach with the hope of getting broad buy-in, and again meant to complement the plan that Mayor Woodward has been sharing. And the first meeting is they're also bringing an outside consultant in to help facilitate this, to again try to bring people together and not have things be political as they can sometimes get in these situations. The first meeting is next Wednesday, and it's been there's sort of a selection of who was invited to it, some of whom have requested to be participants. When we get into the breakout workout groups, there might be other opportunities to plug in if you're so inclined, but we will know more after that initial meeting on Wednesday.
Okay. Any questions or follow-up to that? Oh, well, zipping right through. Number 4, board members' requirements or conflict of interest and Public Meetings Act. Kim has found, and I've laid eyes on, all of us are good as of at least last, like January, February, March. It has to be done every 4 years for the Public Meetings Act, so we're all good with that. The conflict of interest, I'm going to assume Kim will send that out, and we'll get those signed and in, because I don't think those have been done. At least I don't think I have signed one this year. Yeah, I don't think any of us have signed one this year. So we will get that out. Any comment, question on that?
I have a quick Just a reminder, since I think part of the, I think 4 years when we have 3-year terms is part of why we just started doing it annually, to make sure we were capturing everybody with the Public Meetings Act. But just a couple of reminders from that. If you didn't, watch the video for fun annually, when you found out you didn't need to watch it. First of all, just keeping in mind that some of the rules as far as quorum, which we've talked about a little bit in here, and making sure if we are in a situation where we reach quorum of the board, either if we're out socializing, hanging out together, we can't talk any of this sort of CHH business, that is permitted. But anytime we have quorum, it has to be an official publicized public meeting. So that's why sometimes, like even with this work with the Continuum of Care Board, we're trying to keep track of how many folks are going to different meetings to make sure that we don't inadvertently create a public meeting when there isn't one. And I think the other thing is just a reminder, an annual reminder, that because of the public meeting status, we can only conduct action items in person in a meeting that's been publicized. So that's why we cannot do we're not, we have to be thoughtful about any discussions that happen over email, and we certainly can't take any votes over email. So just reminders of those components of that video.
Good. Thank you for highlighting those things for us. Anything else? Comments, questions, follow-up? Item 5, recruiting new board members. It has been with lightning speed that we are going to probably have at the April 11th City Council meeting approval of Karen and Barb. So as of April 11th, we'll increase by 2 members. And there's we've been publicizing, various means, new and more board members for 3 spots through May 15th. I am aware of 1, 2, I think I'm aware of 3 of them, 3 that have come through so far. And if you know of anyone or want to put the word out, please get it out. And May 15th comes around, I assume the executive committee will meet, read them, decide on who to interview, and keep going on that. Anything else on that?
Oh, Barry, this is Brian. I just wanted to let you know I'll continue to put the word out about the board openings through that May 15th date. It has been running on social media and we have it on our website, and I'll put it in the CHHS update. So I'll continue to push that, and hopefully you guys will have more applicants than you can shake a stick at.
Good. I'd love to shake sticks at them. And you're a good wordsmith, Brian. What you wrote up and sent to me was just like, wow, I want to be on that board. It was good. Anything else from anyone? Gordon?
And so, yeah, and I'm working on some kind of an email to reach out for people that might want to get involved in the workforce development, so I'm searching and looking for candidates. I haven't put anything out there in the email streams, but that's a good idea. I'll work on that.
Yeah, I don't know, I've got a few contacts that I just sent emails to, and I put it out over to Homeless Coalition listserv, and
that's all, yeah.
A couple of them that way, and
right.
Okay, anything else on that? Item 6, future meetings, virtual or in person. What should we do, folks?
I vote for virtual.
I gotta say, I like virtual too. It helps with a family to be able to get dinner going from home while I'm listening sometimes. But also, getting in person every once in a while is a nice thing too.
Yeah.
Do we have a hybrid option in where we normally meet? Does that room permit a hybrid option?
Or
where would that be?
Is there a room we couldn't have a hybrid option? Jen, or
I think
King,
the briefing room, as I understand it, because the CA is looking at this too, is a possibility. but there's not much else that we have found to do hybrid.
Well, the briefings room is where we met, right?
Yeah, in the past, yeah.
So that might be a possibility.
I mean, I guess my challenge is recognizing we are a public board. And I feel a tension of not having an opportunity for folks to come into the meeting unless they planned it, done all, you know, have this virtual information. And I also just want us to sort of, I think, be cognizant of what's going on with other public meetings within the city. And I think that it's going to make sense for that to be aligned as much as possible, but I'm very comfortable with offering a hybrid option if that works with our public meetings.
Nicolette, you got a hand up?
Yes, sir. I would just like to say that most of the committees and organizations and departments within the city are moving toward hybrid options, like acknowledging the fact that most people might need one option or the other. And that's kind of an odd blessing from the pandemic, is that it's allowed us to see that this sort of like technological access it is difficult, but it's much easier than we may have previously thought. And it actually allows other people who otherwise wouldn't be able to attend. So I would suggest that, and I would say that Councilman Bingle has always been a fan of the hybrid option, so that both in-person and virtual options are available. And if you run into any issues with the briefing center being the location, just let us know, because we might be able to help you guys find a different location to make that hybrid option available.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in on it before I give my opinion? I love virtual as well. It's so convenient. But I think if we can, and I think we can, I think hybrid is a better way to go, because I don't know, that seems to meet the needs of those who want to show up in person and those who want to show up virtually. So it seemed to me that would be the best option. So any other, I'm probably ready to make a motion that we work toward with the goal of the next meeting being a hybrid.
I'll make the motion, Barry, that we move to hybrid meetings as soon as possible, ideally for our next board meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one discussion point, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
For the next one, the briefing center will not be available, just so we're aware.
Do you know what is it booked out at this time, ongoing, or just next month?
Next month it is, and then in June it looks like it would be available for right now.
All right. Can you also check July, August, September? I mean, we don't need to book that far out, but
July would be good. August would be good. September would be good. I think so. Yeah, I think May it's booked, but after that, it looks like we could probably take it as long as we have the okay for that.
Okay.
So I'm going to amend my motion that we move to the hybrid option for the June meeting going forward, and that we work to getting our regular meeting time booked out in the briefing center.
I second the amendment. I hope that's an appropriate way to do it. The friendly amendment. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Right. Any opposed? Oh. Abstention? Nope, no abstention. Okay, good. Passes. And we are just running through here. Director's report. Oh my gosh, and it says 5:30 and we are at 5:28. We are so ahead of time. Jen, you're up.
Hi there, good evening, everyone. So as far as the staffing updates go, we have been actively pursuing 2 program manager roles. We have had no luck in hiring anybody for those roles. We have made offers to 4 candidates, and we've had 4 candidates refused. And that was out of a very small pool of folks. So we're continuing to work through what to do with that. I'm looking at a variety of different options as far as how we can kind of fill some gaps more quickly. One of those options is hiring the senior manager role, which is an exempt position, and that does not require going through civil service. So I did proceed with HR today on having them post that. I was waiting. I wanted to sort of build from the ground up, but that doesn't seem to be working very well. So I'm going to start with the top and go from there. I think, as you know, there was a combination restructure at the city with the grants department going to a more centralized grants department. And so our grants analyst and senior grants analysts were pulled that direction. However, there was recognition that the amount of amendments and subcontracts and other things that we pushed through this department was more than what that department is able to take on. We were given back one of those positions, and we are currently thinking that we're going to fill that with the classification is called attorney assistant. And the goal is that it's somebody that can take the information from the program managers and program professionals who know about the grants and plug it into those templates that we have and help process those through the system. We have a backlog of those currently, and it's something that we're struggling with. That is currently had been posted. It is closed, but we are the second department in line for that. They don't allow multiple departments to access the same list at the same time. So I have to wait until the other department goes through the list and hires a candidate before I am allowed to look at that list and proceed with interviewing. I did hire a new contract employee for our COVID program specialist role that was previously vacated by Kelsey Martin. And our new employee will be starting on April 11th, which is Monday. We also had Devin Bibiano, who is a current full-time employee, has elected to move over to become the COVID program manager, which is a contract position. So he will be taking over that role effective May 3rd, I believe. I think that's the date. So that is helpful because we'll get some additional resources on that end. We did have program professional staff in the non-COVID contract roles that were actually handling some of those COVID contracts, our COVID ESG contracts. I think I have, even George has a little bit with the COVID CDBG contract. So that will allow us to pull that back from existing staff so that it's not quite such a heavy load. But that does leave us with another gap of a program professional that would be unfilled on our human services side. That recruitment for the program specialist is currently also with another department, but the list is almost exhausted, and they are looking at opening up a new recruitment for that sometime in the next month-ish. And I just really want to thank all the staff that we do have that have hung in through this process. It's very challenging, and I can't tell you how many updates I give regularly on why aren't we fully staffed, and I can tell you that it's not for lack of trying. We're up against many challenges. One is just the system that we have, which is a great benefit to our employees. Going through civil service, it provides many, many benefits, but it is a slower process. The second one is that, this is not seen as a desirable place to work. And we really want to change that. And so certainly, as you all have been very good about recruiting for board members, if you know people who you think would be good fits for any of these positions that I have, please send them to the civil service as these jobs comes available and ask them to apply. We're in a tight spot, but we're doing our best. And I think that we're trending. We've kind of, I think, normalized a little bit, but the normal that we're working with is too much for anybody to handle for an extended period of time. And so that's where we're at. Barry.
I have access to the Spokane Homeless Coalition, which has 1,300 recipients. If you could write up something often job openings get put across that. You write it up, I'll send it out.
Yeah, thank you. I would appreciate that. And I'll definitely utilize Brian for that as well. I think the other part will be that it's not going to be just enough to post a job. I think that we need to reframe what this department does and what the work is like. Because I mean, I had people that applied to work, and then as they went through the process and talked to people about working at the city of Spokane, were really advised to not work in the CHHS department, that it is not a good department to be working on. So I'm not sure how to change that mentality quickly, but I'm hopeful that through time that will change. But it's really hard on our staff right now.
Mm-hmm. Any follow-up questions, comments? Thank you, Jen. And thank you to all the staff and Jen and everybody. I put it in the chat. I am so grateful for all of you, because this work, it's the reason I'm volunteering to be on this board is I think this work is incredibly important. And I'm so grateful that you're willing to be there and do it, and especially in an environment where apparently not a lot of people do. So thank you for being there. Please know I appreciate you, and I think everybody does, definitely. Anything else on that?
Nothing else on the staff overview.
Okay, anything else to report, Jen?
I do just want to update that we did close our shelter RFP, a shelter operator RFP. That closed on Friday, and it's currently going through the process of being reviewed by the COC RFP committee. We had 3 applicants, and we're expecting recommendations back from that group tomorrow. And then, of course, it'll have to go through the board approval as well. There is hope that we can open before the end of April. That is a super tight timeline that depends on probably every single thing going exactly perfectly. So that remains to be seen. So that's what I have on that. Are there any other questions or any other issues that I can address for anyone?
I have a question. Do you have anything to report on Hope House continuing funding after July 31st?
Yes, thank you, Barry. And I do want to make a note that the funding ending June 30th is not just Hope House. There's a wide variety of funding that's associated with COVID that went to a wide variety of providers. And let me just pull up my little note sheet so I can make sure I'm referencing it correctly. Here we go. So overall, through ESG COVID Commerce, we had ESG COVID HUD and CDBG CV HUD dollars. We had about $11.3 million that came into the community. If I look at total COVID funds by agency, you know, we had allocated out to Better Health Together. They got $2 million for housing assistance. We had Catholic Charities to House of Charity got 1.2 million. Family Promise got surge capacity at just under 300,000. The Guardians had Cannon Shelter at 1.5 with some emergency hoteling around 400. Transitions had Women's Hearth at 175. Truth Ministries Emergency Shelter for Men was at just under 500. VOA Hope House was at 913. The Young Adult Shelter was at 233,000. YWCA Safe Shelter was at 118, and the surge was at 125. That doesn't add up to the 11 million. These are just kind of trying to filter by the ones that are impacted at the end of this time frame. And I've been in conversation. I've informed both council via Council President Beggs and then also the administration of this gap. And at this point, we have kind of gone through that list to determine, you know, what are the programs that we think we need to at least at a minimum provide gap funding through the end of the year for, so that we don't lose important services. And obviously, as you know, Hope House is currently at capacity really almost every night. And so we know that serving homeless women in Spokane is really important. The Cannon Shelter is obviously full every night, really important. Truth Ministries is full fairly regularly, and these are all kind of high needs populations where we're really seeing a lot of need for additional capacity. So what we're looking at is funding a variety, not all of the ones that I listed. And we've gotten some funding sources identified, and we're in the process of going through and kind of matching funds to each one of these programs. I will tell you that as of right now, I can only say that we've identified this funding through the end of 2022. There is the potential that then in the next budget that some of those funds will be allocated through 2023 as well. But as I'm sure that you know, emergency shelter is an ongoing escalating cost that very, very few of our grants pay for. And that's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with as a city, as a council, as an administration to say, how are we going to fund this? Because from a CHHS perspective, our grants just don't support it at the level that we've become accustomed to. And HUD has pretty much said, you know, that isn't a priority is funding emergency shelter. So this is something that I think we can work through in the interim, but it certainly is not finished and done. We don't, and I will tell you that some of the conversations I've had with our shelter providers is that what they were getting through these temporary COVID dollars is still not enough for them to sustain their staff. And I will say I did just a little bit of looking around today at shelter jobs that are posted in Spokane, and the current going rate is $16 per hour, and you can make $17 an hour working at Dairy Queen. So if you have the choice to work serving up dilly bars versus working in a shelter where you may come into contact with violence or other challenging issues, you may choose to go work at Dairy Queen. So I think as a community, we're really challenged with this. I think that if we want to keep our shelters running, we need to identify a long-term source of how we're going to manage this. And I'm glad to be a participant in that and to have our department work on that. I think traditional grant sources are not going to fund these things, right? We're going to have to come up with some other options. I think we also have to think about how do we get high caliber quality workers in our shelters, and how do we pay them for the work that they're doing? So I know I kind of took a little bit of a tangent there for you, Barry, on my...
That your answer was wonderful. Thank you so much.
So,
follow up on something the mayor alluded to. She's talked about it being a state thing. I know a huge amount was approved by the state. Do we have any idea of what's coming and for what from the state?
So what I've seen so far is that, and there was some funds that were released last year, I believe, that we did not apply for, and that was for, sorry, I'm losing my voice just a little bit. The funds were allocated for capital acquisition for shelters, and there was no operating dollars associated with that. Now, this session, they have said that they're re-releasing this, and Spokane has really been under a microscope to be able to apply for these funds. I've heard that we only offered one application last year and it was not accepted. And the idea really is that these funds are for the purchase of like an empty hotel that you can then rehab into non-congregate shelter. But those funds did not come with any operating dollars. And so this year, the state government has said, okay, we will offer some operating dollars. I have not seen details of what that looks like. And they said that RFPs would be released in sometime in June. So I'm hoping that they'll give us a little bit of time to be able to look at what those guidelines look like and be able to put a plan together. You know, there are not a lot of, at least this is my understanding, and others may have other information I don't know that we have a lot of vacant hotel properties that are available. I did tour the old Quality Inn, which is located over by Catholic Charities recently, and that was bought by a private equity firm. And that firm has been taking those those types of locations and turning them into either market rate affordable housing units not market rate affordable, market rate housing units, affordable housing units, or also they've been doing units for refugees across various different communities. They've come to Spokane and they've determined that there is not enough of a refugee population to turn all 153 units there into refugee apartments. So they're looking for other options. There were a variety of providers there, so I'm hoping that that's something that maybe one of them would want to look at. I think the challenge that comes is that this particular organization wants to own the building and do a long-term lease. And with the money that we have coming out of the state, it's all around capital acquisition and operating dollars that come along with that. And so there are no dollars that I'm aware of that would support long-term leasing for this type of situation. But I did think it was very illuminating. I mean, they opened the Imperial on 3rd Avenue, which is an old hotel that they rehabbed into market rate housing, and they leased up all of their units in 72 hours, which is just astounding how quickly they're flying off the market. So I think that we all know that there's things that we need, and I know that the state government wants to provide us some of those, and I'm hoping that those two will marry together in a way that works for us and for our community. I just don't have enough information yet to be able to say whether or not that's going to be the case.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you said. Follow-up questions, comments, anybody?
Yeah, I did have a question. It's Nicolette here.
Okay.
So with respect to the Quality Inn, is it the case, and correct me if I'm wrong, that didn't they get matching funds from the city actually to purchase that building?
I am not aware that they got matching funds. I believe the private equity firm bought it outright, but I could be incorrect in that. It certainly didn't come out of our budget. So maybe someone else did put matching funds, but I'm not sure. So if you have additional information, I'd love to know.
I just seem to remember, like, when I was a citizen and didn't work for the city, that there was something fast-tracked in order for them to be able to get some sort of funding in place so that they could go ahead and purchase that land under the auspices of being able to turn it into affordable housing, because we had just, but I don't know. I'll look into that. I just didn't know if you knew off the top of your head. And then with respect to the Imperial, I did have a question because when they were approved for the multifamily tax exemption, their application said that they would have units that were available at a certain rate. And yet when you actually went in there to see if you could rent out those units, they were much higher. And so high that even a city councilman's salary would be rent burdened if they were to actually try to rent that out. So just with respect to making sure that those multifamily tax exemption properties are actually falling within those guidelines when they get those 10 or 12-year exemptions from property taxes. Yeah, it's great that they were able to rent them out right away, but they also got a property tax exemption that beholds them to this idea that they're going to have at least a percentage of those that fall within a certain AMI for affordable housing. So I didn't know if you knew about that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know that I do think it's great that they were all rented out so quickly, because it means that our housing market is in disarray. I don't believe that our department manages state tax credits, but George, you may know better than I don't believe that falls under us. Can you speak to that?
The MTFEs aren't a state tax credit. They're here in the city.
Okay.
City.
That isn't us as far as I know, though. That would be neighborhood services.
Yeah, I don't believe it belongs in our department, but
do you know who does do that oversight? That would be a good thing to know, I think.
Nicolette, can we put you on that?
Planning and economic
Yeah, and
development.
actually we're a part of the multifamily tax exemption committee that's about to meet. We've never met for the first time to review those tax exemptions. I was just curious about how in the loop you were about those items, just because they greatly affect the work that you do. I mean, insofar as like you mentioned it. And so I'll try to follow up with that with Councilman Bingle and make sure that we're on track to give you some sort of report about that in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, I think my point in bringing up the Imperial was just that the state of our housing market is very tight. and that's really challenging us to complete some of these activities that the state would like and that we want for our own communities. And certainly, you know, I've only been here 90 days, and I am not in the loop with all things, certainly not all things outside of my department. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
I think George mentioned regarding Catherine's, you know, who has oversight over state tax credits. He mentioned a name in economic development.
Yeah, so planning and economic development, Terry Stripes is over the local tax credits. Or sorry, not tax credits, but the multifamily tax exemptions. She works with housing providers on that.
Thank you, George. I didn't hear that, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, we got 10 minutes left. Any follow-up from Jen? And on our agenda, we have a whole 5 minutes allocated to committee updates. Affordable housing, I think you're done, aren't you?
Yeah, hopefully we'll
okay.
be meeting soon.
Okay, Jerry, evaluation and RFP, got anything?
No, not much, but Jen's comments about ERA 2 funding earlier is a bit of an RFP committee update, just in the sense that once Jen gets word from that, we're going to pull the RFP committee together to help with recommendations on that funding. So all of that, you know, to be continued or to come. And then so excited for those new board members, because we will be recruiting them to the RFP committee, at least one of them, hopefully, because we need additional board members on RFP committee. And they both share that they would be, one was very interested and the other said that they'd be willing. So those are my only updates.
Yep, thank you. Any comment, question, follow up to that? Now we're way ahead. We got final thing, announcements. Don't forget your Public Meeting Act training. Any other announcements or other business? Oh man, go ahead, Adrian.
Oh yeah, not business, but I think we announced this last time, and then hold on, I'm going to copy something. The Gonzaga had its second annual affordable housing panel last Wednesday, and I think I've sent the link before for the one from the year before, but this last year, this last week we had Fawn and Chris Patterson from Hello for Good, and Spencer Gardner. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but maybe I'm not. Anyhow, if you're interested, I've put the link in the chat for you if you're interested. I think there were some sound issues at the beginning, but my understanding is it gets better when we go through a little bit further. But it was hearing from Spencer was, for me, particularly helpful and enlightening, and I hope that we have an opportunity to have him come speak to our board soon about some of the work. The mayor alluded to some of the work that planning's doing, and that has to go through council, but I think he's got some really helpful insights. So if you're interested, it's available, and that will also take you to other school business events that you can see last year's affordable housing panel as well.
Adrian, could you send an email to the board or something? Because I can't find the chat on Teams.
I can. I'll send you both the last 2 years. I'll send them via email.
Yeah, I don't know where they put the chat, but it's not clear.
And the moderator was really good. So. Anything else? Announcements, comments, questions, observations, suggestions? Thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And no need to thank me for getting us done a whole 7 minutes early. I try to keep things moving. All right, so executive committee, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Affordable housing folks, we might see you sooner if that gets put together. And our next board meeting is first Wednesday of May. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Kim.